How you be? Hairless minx of the blue sea. It's me, we back. Y'all know what time it is, man. Another great Friday. I don't have anything to complain about. I'm just not gonna say anything. You know, we don't always get our way in things in life, but we get these little moments like a hot and fresh chapter on a Friday. And for a lot of y'all, it's probably payday on top of that. You know what I mean? You might have a 3 day weekend or whatever it is you got going on. You got something, to be positive about. And we got a fire chapter, man. I don't know. I can't remember the last chapter that wasn't. I'm sure, like, obviously, there's a couple that are just setup chapters or anything of that nature, but most of the chapters in the past maybe 30 where there's at least half a chapter I'm highly interested either in what's going on in the panel or the dialogue. And for that, that's all I could be thankful for because we didn't get a. There's, pacing can be whatever. I'm not going to get into that, but I've been grateful, so I understand the breaks, especially lately, because, man, it's just been, One Piece has been crazy. But anyway, we got the cover, and I'm pretty sure there was an earlier SBS about this. I don't even remember because y'all know the series tripping through time. It'll be back, like I said. Maybe it was the end of last week or earlier this week. Um, just got super busy, but a lot of stuff sometimes comes pops in my head just because I've been rereading the series lately again. And the drawing on animals is like a thing with Oda. He talked about this in like one of the first SBSs. Somebody asked him about something, and it referenced no, it wasn't the first SBS because it referenced another SBS about him liking to draw animals or something, and somebody sent him a picture of an animal to draw on. So that's what I thought about with the Roger thing. And then you seen Buggy and Shanks like being scary up in a tree, and then Roger's got that. Roger was probably cool, man. Like I want to see when he's angry, because for a guy that happy, you already know when he's not. It's just you don't want to see the other end of the spectrum with, carefree, nice people. You don't. That's not what you want. We open up with Neko. He's a little bit confused about what's transpired, you know, with the moon and whatnot, shifting back and forth with the luck, right? We had those statements last week with Pedoline, who is really defeated. He's really big tongue is big sleep. So it's unfortunate that it had to be this way. But hey, you're not a main character and you're cool, but you're not that cool. So I don't care if you, you get ripped off or whatever. But yeah, man, he's knocked out. Yeah, so Sulong is still a force to be reckoned with. And even Neko mentions to Carrie, hey, look, the sky's clear. You got to be careful. You don't want to actually accidentally go into Sulong, right? That could be a problem depending on the timing, and you may attack the wrong person, or even worse, the ultimate downside of it is you could fight until you literally exhaust yourself to death, and we can see that go all kinds of ways. And so hopefully that's not the case for any of the mink. Like if they get put in some situation where they're just constantly fighting and we lose some mink that way, that would be unfortunate. And that would be a messed up way to go. You almost rather them get defeated than to go out like that. That's like watching somebody starve to death or something, or drowned or one of those where you just see everything disappear. And not just, oh, you were defeated. No, he's dead. But anyway, like Wanda was there too, I think. And then I always like when we get the back shots where you can see of like Onigashima itself, right? And the sword of Onigashima. Because I'm sure at some point, whatever that creature would belong to, it'll be referenced. Even if we don't get a lot about it, we're not just going to keep seeing that for no reason, right? That's just not how things work in the series. Especially uh, a monumental monument. A lack of vocabulary early. But Yamato was remembering like, hey, I read on his journal and he had a clash with the boy. Roger had a clash with the boy Shirohige. Right? That Odin saw and he wrote about how crazy that was for him to see. So for Luffy and Kaido to be replicating that, as well as other events that's been in this journal that have replicated themselves, to Yamato. This is really a huge deal, right? Because this has been our whole life. Wano in this journal, in the events, and how important they are to the entire world. Because remember, Yamato knows it more than what the Straw Hats do. You can almost probably put it up there with Robin. Honestly, probably more than Robin, because Robin hasn't had the chance to gather all that information, and certain things where even Robin is just figuring out now in Wano after the last poneglyph, business as usual, right? You answers lead to more questions with the poneglyphs, which that's just like how the series is. So, from a Yamato standpoint, Luffy not wanting information to begin with, I don't think Yamato's going to say too much. So, like, when we get situations like this, I do think it'll be in flashback form. So, where Yamato is visualizing what is written in the journal, right? And then piecing together the rest for herself. Like, okay, so that's why I need to do this now, X, Y, and Z. She's just literally going by the book. You know, how they get there is another thing. But the key concept seems probably what Yamato is focused on. Like, she probably doesn't take everything verbatim. Maybe Odin as a person, but not every little detail. Because everything is not, even what's been predictable, the way it's happened has probably not been as predictable for what Yamato's seen over the past 20 years. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up. I just like the parallel as it is. We knew it was going to happen at some point, just to it's like a coming out party for Luffy in a sense, because what happened with Big News Morgan, that wasn't the coming out party. That was just somebody running their mouth, not knowing what they're talking about. This here is something different, right? With Conqueror's coding and trying to just being here in Wano, doing what the Straw Hats are doing, and even though Luffy keeps losing, we know how this works. I still got my money on Kaido on the 1v1. I don't know how the Onigashima part is going to play into, especially later, but we'll get to that when we get to that. And then the fodder. I just keep calling everybody who, if you ain't got no name, you got a random design, even if you cool, you're all fodder, right? And they're confused about the earthquakes or tremors or, the shaking, not realizing why the sky had been split, just the same way Nico didn't realize, or Nekomamushi didn't realize about why the moon was clear in the first place. So it's more than everybody is not in the know as it is, right? About the top tier of information when it comes to information, about abilities and things that can and cannot happen, right? We know about it because of what happened with Whitebeard and Shanks, and then later on in the flashback, right, with the clash, like I was saying earlier, watching Whitebeard. But these events, because they're so devastating, they're probably few and far between, or they're somewhere isolated where not many people are aware of how dangerous this stuff is. They probably just see or feel the after effects. So it just tells you the scale that, even for a class like Luffy being able to endure that or put up an equal or close to equal force is just it's scary for the rest of the series. But even though that's the base of where he needs to be just to compete now, just knowing that he's at that level, right? Because in One Piece we don't, which it may happen, but we don't get too often. Like we got it in Fishman Island, right, and the return to Sabaody, but it's not like Luffy and the Straw Hats are always going back to their same spots, especially because of the way the route to the One Piece has been shaped out a bit. It doesn't really require for Luffy to go all of his old stomping grounds as far as the Straw Hat Pirates are concerned. But I do think it will happen because you got stuff like LeBron and things like that where maybe we do go back to Water 7 at some point. A lot of series have a tendency to do that because you do want these characters to have hometown interactions without it always having to be a bounty poster. It's just the danger that brings, as far as the world government and other entities. You have to be careful when going back home and stuff like that. Y'all know about that. But it was just something that I've been thinking about in terms of the characters for later on and their legends, right? Because of Zoro and Shimasuki Village and what's going on with Wano now. But anyway, you know, Yamato got the head cracked wide open and it is still leaking. Understanding that even for everything that's going on, Kaido's still that dude, man. And the Thunder Bagua, just it puts people on notice. And getting Thunder Bagua changed everything in the entire series the first time we seen that, because we just the closest we've seen to Luffy actually being destroyed, right, as far as impact and just from a first encounter. Because his first encounter with Katakuri was not that bad. His first encounter with Dofi was not that bad. His first encounter with what? One clap Kaido, man, because it's what? And you done son? Totally different, right? The closest, like I was saying, we seen to taking that much damage straight up front where you couldn't win, or at least we thought he couldn't win at the time, was Rob Lucci and Roku Ogon. Roku Ogon was the most devastating attack we seen Luffy take up until that point. Because everything else, yes, there were hopeful attacks, but he can grit his way through it. Had the Roku Ogon been applied like quite a few times early in the fight, I don't know if he would have won against Lucci in that fashion. You know what I mean? So luckily for him, it didn't. He got cracked with it a few times, but it just goes to show the growth and where we are in the story right now as far as strength. But just thinking about Thunder Bagua just made me think about Roku Ogon, and of course he's messing with Momo still. And Momo's like, "Hey, look, this is all new to me." And I like how he still talks like a dignified, Momo's got super clout, man. He's like the bloodline, you know what I mean? So there is, as scary as he can be, he still tells Luffy, hey man, you better watch your mouth, man. I eat to go with the coat. You know what I'm saying? But I'm still Momonosuke out here. Hold your insolent tongue. It reminds me of those characters where when the character thinks they're superior to somebody else. I always think back to Third Strike, man. Street Fighter Third Strike, my dude Gil. And one of the coldest statements to this day, I still say from time to time because it's funny, right? The mark of my dignity shall scar thy DNA. That's kind of what Kaido reminds me of in that sense. But what Momo just said, seeing him as a dragon talk about people being insolent, you just get that whole Shenron feel like, yeah, Momo's gonna be beast later. But him being able to not change is kind of a counterplay on the fact that technically he just did change, right? Simply, right? Once because of Shinobu's ability, and then the second time basically changing and staying in dragon form. So even though he's saying it's not that simple, everything he's just been doing it right. And then we see Yamato jump on Momo. They try to get away from Kaido and let Luffy do his thing, and Kaido's like, Momonosuke, Yamato. I wonder what he's thinking. Is he just disgusted by the fact that these two individuals are working together and what they represent as a whole? Or is he just disgusted because even though Momo is a dragon, technically he's still a human, and how he thinks about humans based on what we've learned over the past few chapters, like before I've talked about, is a little bit more of a superiority complex that I didn't think Kaido even had. But like I stated before, it's just more the strength part. He doesn't care what creature you are; he only cares about the strength part. And Momo doesn't really know what to do, and they're being chased, and the trauma kicks in, and then it's dope that he's like, "Yo, Kinemon," he has a spirit bomb moment. Kinemon, Kiku, lend me your strength. That's kind of cheesy, but I get it. You know what I mean? That's kind of cool though, and I don't know, man. Like you might have went to Clash of Clans. This is the part soon as kind of threw me off a little bit. But maybe it's a translation thing. It'll be different in the Viz. Yeah, I already know what I'm gonna say. I'll support the Viz, and I'll get to that when I get to that, I guess. But Yamato basically clashed with Kaido, and then Momo. He's terrified, right? Because he's still scared. He's still an 8-year-old kid. This is not really. I don't know. You think it would be annoying by now, but it's Kaido, man. you get a break. It's Kaido. And then Luffy interrupting is kind of interesting because we don't really see him interrupt very often, right? So it's just funny seeing him being the one interrupting. I don't really want to call it a fight, but it's Luffy's like, hey, you need to pay attention to me, man. And when he And Kyle just has this look on his face. And I couldn't tell if it was just like, it was more of a shock thing, or is he more like disgusted? Like, is this dude just wrap his legs around my neck? Like, whoa, no man's legs shall ever be around my neck. You know what I mean? Kaido's a funny guy, so I can see him just being mad about something like that. But him being interrupted is just not something he's probably used to mid attack. Like we haven't even seen that before. So maybe he was just I don't know. The look on his face kind of reminded me of the disgusted face that from Whitebeard and Odin, and then Usopp, not Robin and Nami, with their little panels that were like that. But that's what I saw. The guy was apparently not happy about what's transpiring. And Yamato instantly like acknowledging the fact that Luffy is stronger than what Yamato could bring. It's very interesting. And honestly, like I said, um, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like I know Luffy is advanced now, and then the Conqueror's coding, and how quick he is when he learns something. He does learn it fast. I give him credit for that. And what I talk about all the time with Luffy is only disadvantages. He's just not been alive that long. But if you think about the time in the story for how, like the very beginning of the story, how strong we assume Shanks was at the time and his age, Luffy's only like 5 years out. So on one note, I understand how it could be taken as far as his progression. But if you really think about it, it's really not that far off. He's only a couple years away from, like, if Luffy was 20 in his late 20s or early 30s, no one would complain, right? It's just because he's 19. But even for that being the case, a couple more years in his mid 20s, being in your mid 20s in the top tier in this series is not that outrageous, right? Sabo, Ace, right? Like, Blackbeard waited for a long time, but nobody was probably running up on Blackbeard in his early days, even when he didn't have the Yami Yami. So it really only seems absurd in terms of Kaido himself. For you to be able to overcome Kaido in merely hours, in a sense, and after the previous times where you were knocked out for hours. How to balance that is tough, and Conqueror's coding does help, but you also have to give Kaido extra stuff to do, right? Like trying to hold Onigashima up, which we see now with the dragon thing that they step on clouds, which lore wise makes sense, but I didn't know if they were going to go that route. I thought he could just straight up fly, like because the any. I'm not going to get into that in this video when it comes to dragons, but I do like the fact that it can be used in this way where he can kind of run on the sky, similar to almost to like skywalking away, right? That doesn't seem too crazy. And then it's right on the tip of my tongue. Clouds, 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 clouds. Dofi. He was able to use the Ito Ito no Mi, and he can go from cloud to cloud too. So using clouds isn't that crazy to me. And Zeus could carry Big Mom of all people. So, you know, this pretty much lines up, even though they're quote unquote flame clouds. I can get down with it, man. And then, you got the Legend of Momotaro, right? It's all over the series as it is, especially now here in Wano, and we're on a place called Onigashima. So um, I like that Yamato is basically like Navi. Hey, listen, and she's just gonna help Momo learn how to be a dragon, right? Very familiar with the dragon power, seen it her whole life, so it would make sense. It makes sense to me. I can dig it. And basically, Kaido's supposed to be getting weak now because Onigashima is crumbling, and then you have the culmination of that. Now, here's the twist that didn't ever cross my mind. We've seen this all over the series in various stories, right? You Time gives a better suspense than the threat does sometimes, right? The amount of time a group or a character has to complete a task or an obstacle, right? It's just like any other sport. For the most part, most sports are based on time, right? Time creates suspense, like I was just saying. I thought it was going to be more on the level of a Noah situation, Not necessarily like the the birdcage plot on me or anything like that. But the twist I didn't see coming was bringing up all the weapons and everything that's there and chemicals and making it a giant bomb. I'm like, whoa, that actually changes what I appear of the threat, right? Because these people survived a mountain boar. You're not going to survive an explosion. If that were to happen, there's probably less than 10 characters there that would survive with whoa do 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 and mama. You know that she's not gonna die from an explosion. That's just not what's gonna happen. Okay. You might maybe actually be injured for once. But Big Mom is not dying from all of Wano could explode. And as long as Big Mom don't fall in the water, she'll be fine somehow. It's just that's just what it is. They defy logic. But everybody else, the main characters, oh man, everybody's wiped. You know, it's just not gonna happen. But I do like that, and it does create it creates a purpose for Momo without him having to engage in combat with Kaido, because that just is just way out of proportion, right? It's just way out of proportion. Even when Ace was younger and he tried to fight Whitebeard alone, it's just you're out of your league. There is such a thing, homie, and you're out of your league with that one. But giving him an importance, here's the part that threw me off. When Mama talks about going, like, he doesn't say fire per capital. And I think this is just a translation thing. Yamato is like, you can't, it's too dangerous. It doesn't even sound like something Yamato would say. And then to turn around and quickly be like, okay, Momo, you go do it. So I don't know if that's just her way of trying to encourage Momo, so it feels like he's not being told what to do. He's being a leader, which he was in that point. His first concern was, I have to save the people. He wasn't even thinking about it. He almost forgot for a second and he's afraid of heights and all this other stuff. So, and he's been about that when it comes to the people, right? And what they mean to him and his family and the legacy of his pops and how that ties into him as a character as a whole and the future of the series because of, once again, how important Wano is and its real life representation, you know, from a folklore standpoint and a culture standpoint, its representation and the importance of the story. Like I said, I've been saying about Momo, that's a lot of weight to bear for any person, but a child, you know, so you got to give him his space, but at the same time, you're all gonna die if you don't if you don't get this done. So then bringing up the 5 minute thing is interesting because you're not beating Kaido in 5 minutes. Okay, I don't care what we're being told. It's just that's not gonna happen. Not in 5 minutes. It's just not. Anything is possible. Obviously, range of outcomes and variance are always a thing, but I like how I just backtracked that quick. But you know, there's a non-zero chance, right, that this happens in under 5 minutes. Clearly, something else is going to transpire, or Momo will be successful. I just don't think it'll be both, where the 5 minutes pass by, but then the threat disappears. You know, it's just got to be one or the other. How that relates to fighting Kaido himself, who's tanked everything up into this point. And even with the damage that has been dealt to him, he just seems like whatever. Like he just has more scratch marks on him now. But who's to say? You know, I just think we're kind of being led on here. You know, not just because I don't want to believe that Luffy can do this alone. It just seems like when I first read the title of the chapter, I thought it was going to be something different going on in this chapter. Just because lately it's been too smooth and we know how that goes. Like it's been rough, but it hasn't been dire. Zoro's situation with King feels more dire to me right now than what's going on in it on the roof. So I don't know if that's just a me thing, not that's just a me thing. Um, but it just doesn't. I don't know, man. It always surprises me. So we'll see what's up. As far as that part. But y'all know, all I've been wanting to talk about this whole time is hailing in from the south side of Shimosuke village. We got the Senpai of the Santoryu, man. Zoro D Sword, man. Roronoa Zora, man. Future world's greatest swordsman, world's strongest swordsman, world's best swordsman. However you want to word it. The man who sits at the top, man. It's like me. I told him I wait for you at the top, homie. When you got to get up here, but hey, man, King in this First of all, the little comedy with Queen was cool. I was like, all right, that's cool because Queen almost literally got like clapped. If you really think about it, you know what I mean. And even State's like, hey, my backside. So I'm like, you almost literally got your cheeks clapped, but pause. But yeah, it was just so many stuff. Like y'all know, I really write stuff down. I had to write some stuff down because the fighting, man. Like this interaction with Zoro and King is really interesting now to me because this is the second time Zoro has brought up um, something related to the sword, right? He mentions that it's unforgivable that basically King tried to kill him without a sword, implying that he will never die unless it's by the hand of a sword. That's kind of like the mentality. Well, he's not going to lose before Mihawk anyway, according to him, right? But I do like that even though Zoro tanked this attack, you know, King is strong, man. Threw him through a building. And we seen like the even before that, the building he chopped up, he did that with the greatest ease, and it's wrecking down tribe. Zoro can block these attacks, but until he decides to actually try to counter one, it was heavy out there, man. Like I said, for a second, King was looking a little bit more threatening, and see, even you hear it. They hear it. They heard me talking about King. Was like, yo, we gotta send them. We gotta send the boys, man. Hopefully, wherever they're going, everybody's gonna be fine. But they heard me. They felt it. They felt the hockey from King, and I think this is a hybrid form, right? Because he's half winged. We haven't. His wings look different. Like they don't look feathery. They look more like the pterodon, or however you say it, the bigger version of the pterodactyl. They look more like that. And I don't know. He knocked Zoro through some buildings, and Frankie was like, "Hey, you just you good, man?" And Zoro was like, "Hey, man, I'm straight, man. It is what it is. There's no way I was just gonna walk over this guy, right?" So, so the reason why King's mad though is, of course, like Katakuri, there's a section of his personality, his face, that's never been seen before. Now, him being this angry about being seen, I can take it as a bigger deal than with Katakuri because that was a personal, like getting over yourself type of situation. King's situation may have stemmed from I can't be recognized. Because remember, like I don't know, and then this is another thing with the word divine being used in a text, and I brought this up before. Is it a precursor as like a command that you're drawing out hockey? Because we've seen it with Yamato, and then we've seen the clash with King in Zoro where he used. You already know, right? He's used this move quite a bit. It's one of his signature moves. And I can't always say it correctly as the way the anime does, so I'm gonna spare you. Just watch the clip from Stampede, you'll know what I'm talking about. Because that's where it sounds the best, and it's the cleanest. Even through the entire series, in my opinion, it's just super cleanly done in the movies. But no one's ever seen his face. But remember, he's a rare race, and then depending on how he was displaced from living atop the red line, him being seen as a huge deal to the point where even though you know his race, you probably don't know what he looks like. But he looks, I don't even know what to call his design from what we see of the cracked mask. And you don't know if it's like, is King saying what Zoro did was unforgivable because his face could have been seen, or the fact that he used an attack that was not strong enough to take him out, similar to what Zoro said? Because on one note, they make it, to me, it looks like she's just saying Zoro doesn't understand that him being seen is why King's going to be very upset. The same way Zoro was mad that the finishing blow that he should have been trying to attempt should have been with a blade. And I don't know what King did after they clashed, right, that knocked Zoro into Onigashima. Because it seems like when he did the Tenkyodon attack, right, you seen Tenkyodon, he said divine, like the same way Yamato used divine as a precursor to a hockey attack. King does the same thing. They clash, right, and we see Tiger Hunt, right? Son to the Hugh, right? That whole situation with that attack. And after they clash, Zoro gets knocked extra hard after they clash, though. So I don't know if I'm just not reading the panel right because there's like a question mark sign. So I don't know if King did something after. And that's what Zoro was talking about because he knocked him up right into Onigashima and then he came flying in and boom, smacked him back down. And we see Zoro use a move that I'm not even wasn't familiar with, right? This what do you call it? I wrote it down. It just reminded me of Mario 3. So I was like, oh, I better write that down. What was it called? Let me find it. I forgot. I wrote it down and I still can't find it. Oh, well. Oh, Clear Lands. Yeah. Need through you. Clear Lands. Sky Tanuki. That's what made me think about Mario 3. When you get the feather, you change it. I knew what a Tanuki was when I didn't even know what it was. I just, oh, he changing the statues. That's dope. But he does it to break his fall, which I like. And it's funny because y'all know I brought up a couple of chapters ago, like why Zoro hasn't learned Skywalk. And this would have been, it's very funny sometimes when I talk about something a few chapters later, it comes up. It's like, I know Oda doesn't know who I am. He better not know, right? There's just no way. But it's just interesting because I was like, as a swordsman, Skywalk would be very useful, right? And then we had the Dragon Walk. Well, I'll call it now a Dragon Rush, right? This whole ability of walking on air in a sense, like the whole land, sea, and air thing. And then, I just thought it'd been cool, like, well, Zoro Skywalk, but whatever. He can't learn every ability. King being identified, I don't know how that would be a problem if the people who already know things know that what he is, right? And even honestly, because he's in Kaido's crew and that's basically his right hand man's, even if you knew who he was, how are you coming to get him? Or you can't just run up on King. Like he even told Big Mom no. So I'm not sure how big of a deal it is. Him being it's a big deal to us because we never heard that race in the series, and I'm sure it'll pop up. But I just find it interesting because of who he is, and he's around Kaido. So like, what are you gonna do? Go capture him? Like, you know what I mean? I'm very interested on what King's backstory is going to be in this fight, and how deep is Zoro going to have to dig, and what attack is he going to use? Because again, King mentioned slitting, that attack should have slit your throat to Queen, and then a couple of chapters ago, we had Zoro telling King even if he has to basically bite his throat out to get this dub, he's going to do it. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, that and supposedly King likes to torture and stuff like that. So this and he's flamed up right now, all puns intended. Not only is he angry, he's actually on fire, and of course Zoro can cut fire, so we don't have to worry about him getting the George Foreman grill treatment. So y'all let me know what y'all think. Have fun, enjoy your weekend. We'll see you Monday, man. This was wild. Peace.